Many people I teach wonder, how do the top players in the world handle the pressure of big tournaments? And how do they handle the different situations that they find themselves on the course? One classic example of this is Tiger Woods at the recent Masters. He took a 10 on the 12th hole, but then proceeded to be 5 under par for the next 6. So how did he re-centre himself? How did he get his mind back onto the task? It'd be very easy, especially for somebody like Tiger Woods, who's got all the millions in the world. He doesn't need to perform better on those last few holes. He could quite easily have just given up. But first of all, it's not in his nature. But also, I also believe it's because he's got so well drilled into how to deal with these situations. And the way he deals with these situations is through a good pre-shot routine. Now, most people think that a pre-shot routine is a practice swing, walk up to the ball, have a couple of waggles and hit the shot. But what you'll find that most of the top players in the world have is not just a physical pre-shot routine that you see them going through on the course. They've also got a very specific mental pre-shot routine. And I'm going to talk you through that today. So a good pre-shot routine starts before the ball. We've just arrived at where our ball's located. We've put our bag down. Now we need to go through a good decision-making process. And that is done by, believe it or not, trying to switch our brain into an analytical mode. And a great way to do that is to go into some sort of decision-making pose. It can be something as simple as getting your sky caddy out or getting your yardage planner out. Something that's going to get you into thinking about the shot. So you're going to think about where the hazards are. Most people think that it's a bit negative to be looking at hazards. We do need to be aware of where the hazards are because we need to be able to plan to play away from them. So for example, if we know the water starts at 250 yards and it's a very narrow fairway and we could get there with a driver, all we need to know on this hole is that we're going to hit a 3-wood or we're going to hit a hybrid or an iron, something to lay up short. So we need to go through some sort of decision-making process to make sure we're going to choose the right club for the right situation. So I've got my target, and now pick my club. Now what I want to get into now, part of the routine, is what I call the rehearsal phase. So the first part of a rehearsal, and everybody will see this on TV, is where we would have an actual practice swing. So you can have 1 or 2 practice swings, and certainly the second one, if you're going to have 2, we want to have it an actual motion as if we're going to hit the ball, because what we want to do is we want to tell our body that this is what we want to do when we hit this shot. Now the extra bit that we don't necessarily see on TV is what the players are thinking at this stage. Now what most players will be thinking at that stage is once they have their practice swing, once they do their fully committed practice swing, they're feeling exactly what they want of the strike. They're imagining a perfect strike. They're looking up and they're seeing the ball travel towards their target. Now what this is doing is this is giving them an element of positivity just before they go into hitting the ball. Now you imagine Tiger Woods when he took his 10, very easy for him to be stood on the 13th tee with negative thoughts going on in his mind, and very easy to have that 10 turn into a double bogey on the 13th. But he didn't, and he did it by his pre-shot routine and committing to a positive outcome visualization-wise just before he pulled the trigger. And that gives him a positive energy just before he steps into the ball. One last thing that we need to do, just as we're stepping into the ball, is we need to have some sort of positive self-talk. Now this can be in the term of it can be just one phrase, it can be, come on, you can do this, or it could just be a simple one-word command such as commit. So you've gone through the decision-making process, you've gone through the rehearsal, and then just as you're walking up to the ball, you say to yourself, commit. And now you've got yourself as ready as you possibly can be to hit a good shot. Okay, so next part of the pre-shot routine, and arguably the most important, is hitting the shot. Now I think this is the part where we need to spend the least time. You know, we've gone through the decision-making process, we don't want to rush that. And we've gone through the rehearsal phase where we're trying to picture the shape we want. And again, we don't want to rush that too much, but this is the bit where we need to be committed. We need to just go. If we stop and spend a lot of time over this phase of the shot, that's when negative thoughts can creep in and the outcome can be disastrous. Now you can imagine if Tiger's just taken that 10 on the 12th at Augusta And then when he gets over his shot on the 13th, if he's saying stuff to himself such as don't go left or don't block it too far right into the trees, there's a very good chance that that is what will happen with the shot. So when we get into this phase, we're going to have a couple of elements of self-talk and we're just going to commit. So the self-talk's going to come, first of all, when we walk into the shot, as we've discussed before, which is commit to the shot. When we actually then get up to the ball, we might have a couple of waggles, we might just get ourselves set, but then just before we pull the trigger, we want one more bit of positive self-talk. Again, commit to the shot, good rhythm, whatever it might be, just something to give you that element of positivity, because if we let our mind go blank for any length of time, it's only going to get filled with negative thoughts just before we hit the shot. So have some sort of positive self-talk just before you pull the trigger. Now, when we hit the shot, what we want to try to get to is to have as fewer swing thoughts as possible. If when we're hitting these shots, we've got 12 different swing thoughts going through our mind, under pressure, there's a very little chance that that's going to result in a good outcome. So if we can reduce the amount of swing thoughts to more external thoughts, so internal thoughts would be trying to feel about where your elbow is on the backswing or some sort of mechanical thought, but an external thought would be more on the shape of the shot you want to play. So if we can get to the point where when we're over the ball, we're just going to think of the shape that we're going to play or rhythm, something like that, 1, 2, and just commit to the shot, we've got a far better chance of creating the outcome that we want under pressure. Okay, so I've gone through my routine, I've committed to that shot 100%. Now most people think that's where the routine ends, that's where the shot ends. Well actually, if you think about it, we carry the most emotion on the golf course after we've hit a shot. So if we've pulled that one into the trees on 13, we're going to walk off that tee feeling again negative about ourselves. And then if we get into our pre-shot routine for the next shot, again, that's going to be very difficult to pull ourselves out of it and get us into a positive mode. So it's key, once we finish the shot, to draw a line under it. Now, a great key that I heard that Darren Clark does is when he finishes the shot and he puts the club back in his bag, as soon as that club hits the bottom of his bag, that's his mental cue to be, "Bush, that shot's gone." And then when he walks down the fairway, he makes a conscious effort to keep his eye line above the top of the trees. So again, if we see a negative person on the golf course, there's a very good chance that their head is down as they're walking, and that reduced posture, that slump posture, is going to create negative thoughts in our mind. So we need to take control of our body posture so that we can take control of our mind, and keeping your eyes above the level of the trees is a great way to keep your mind positive after the shot. Now, I can well imagine that there's many people out there that are thinking, God, this is going to take ages. We're going to slow people down. There's going to be a backlog of people waiting behind us. And I hear you. And I know speed of play is such a big consideration at the moment. Now, one thing I would say to combat that is you can start your pre-shot routine before your playing partner's ball has landed. I see lots of people on the golf course, they watch their playing partner's ball in the air, they watch it land, they have a bit of a discussion about the shot, and then they start their own little pre-shot routine. Now that's just going to slow play down. So I would suggest once your playing partner's getting ready to play their shot, you wander off, not in their eye line, you don't want to be getting to the point where you're putting your playing partner off, but you wander off to your shot. You start your decision-making phase, you get your sky caddy out, you have a look at the targets that you want to avoid, you pick where you're going to aim, you get your club ready to go, you acknowledge your playing partner's shot by telling them good shot or bad shot, whatever it might be, and then you're ready to then do the second and third part of this phase, as opposed to straight away starting everything from scratch. So I think the benefits of a good pre-shot routine far outweigh the negatives of potential slow play. Plus, a good pre-shot routine should be no longer than 20-30 seconds. So whilst I've explained it here in quite a long-winded fashion, once you get into it and you start doing it on a regular basis, you'll start to breeze through these different sections of it, and hopefully you'll start to see your scores improve and you won't be slowing play up.